All right, welcome to our radio.com program for a Tuesday, the 11th day of February. We've got a couple days before the break for the All Star game in the NBA. Baseball is back as camps start to open everywhere, as baseball sends out a shocker by floating what is just a very involved and I would say highly controversial new format for the postseason, which we'll get to in just a couple of minutes. There's a lot of NFL quarterback rumors that continue to float around everywhere. Some of them absurd. But that's what's going to go on here for the next couple of weeks. They're going to keep getting that. And as baseball opens up camps, they have to deal with the ramifications of everybody again talking about the scandal over and over and over again. We'll get to all that, but let me first on this New Hampshire primary night do a couple things on politics here. A little decision 20 stuff that I said I would do throughout the campaign. I'll give you analysis on it tomorrow, what I think happened. Although it's pretty interesting here going into this evening. The most interesting part is not that Bernie was going to win, because listen, this is almost a home game for Bernie. All right, Mayor Pete become the flavor of the week for a lot of the people looking for a compromise candidate and some donors looking for a compromise candidate. He's also picking up some of the vacuum that has been left there by the fact that Bloomberg's not yet officially in this. That will come in the next couple of weeks, where the person will finally meet up to the ads, which have been, just been carpet bombed across the whole country. He spent somewhere around $500 million already in advertising. But more than that, it's just that they are trying to fill the vacuum that none of them expected to have by the total collapse of the Biden campaign. I mean, the Biden campaign has, to say the wheels have come off would be the understatement. You would actually start to think that you would be expecting to hear a press conference or hear or see something sent out or to wake up to, Biden has, thrown in the towel, because, I mean, it is unbelievable what's going on with Joe Biden's campaign here. Joe Biden walked in, and the day he walked in as a candidate into this Democratic crowded field, he was the front runner. Why? Because he's Joe Biden. He's been running for president since the 70s. He was a two-time winning vice president. He is the direct extension of the Obama presidency. He has been one of the faces of American politics for 40 years. So very few people have more name recognition. And what has happened is we have watched him just dissipate in front of our eyes, where other old guys like Trump, who's not young, and Bernie have looked energized. And since Bernie's heart attack, he looks like almost a new man. Okay, he is like a lion out there. Trump, whether you like him or don't like him, has plenty of energy and is energized when he's in front of a crowd. People who discuss politics with me have said to me, is there something wrong with Biden? He can't put two sentences together. His speech the night when everything fell apart in Iowa, here's a man who has been in the heart of American politics for 30 or 40 years, who was in every important thing that happened for 8 years in the White House, who understands politics in every level in this country. There's nothing he doesn't know. There's no world leader he doesn't know on a first name basis. There's nothing that this guy hasn't been involved in. But when that thing fell apart, where they weren't going to give any real official stuff that night, and the whole Iowa thing became just a punchline, he, who should have seized the moment because it was better for him, gave one of the worst speeches you've ever seen. I mean, it was almost painful to watch. Now, as you may have paid attention to or not, he has left New Hampshire before they even get the results. So he basically has said, I'm not waiting around for the post-game interview, okay? I know I'm dead. I know I'm getting beat here. I'm taking the ball and going to the next stop. So he has already given up here. He's already left town. They rather than stay at the Biden post results, post primary party, if you want to call it that, where you try to spin your 12% or your fourth place finish, and you might even finish fifth tonight. It's possible. He could finish behind Klobuchar and Warren and finish fifth tonight. It's real close for the last three, but it is like the air is just like seeping out because the donors who want to put their money where they can back a live candidate, and a lot of them are looking for compromise candidates to Bernie because let's be honest, Bernie, who we all know was, if we don't want to say officially cheated, he was at least marginally cheated out of the nomination last time. They changed the rules on him. They cut down his candidacy on purpose. The superdelegates finished them off. I mean, so we all know that. We all know that because they didn't want him. They don't want him again for the same reasons because the people who understand American politics know that running on, right now he's got 30% or 40% of rabid followers. He's got all the young followers. He basically bought the youngsters. How's he bought them? He's promised them free college and promised them that I'll wipe out your student loans, which is never going to happen. That's buying them. That's as much of buying them as you could buy anybody. I'm offering you free college. I'm offering you no student loans. Neither is going to ever happen. He has put forth three policies that are impossible to fund in this country. Number one, not everyone in this country is getting free health care. It's never happening. This is not Denmark, okay? This is not 6 million people. Denmark has fewer people, a lot fewer people than New Jersey. New Jersey has almost 9 million people. Denmark has 6. This is a country that has over 330 million people in it. You cannot fund health care for free. It cannot be done. We would be bankrupt. On top of that, he wants to fund free college. And on top of that, I'll wipe out all your student loans. No, he won't. He won't do any of the three. And when he starts to talk like that, he's got no chance of winning. The Republicans, especially Trump, are just praying that Bernie Sanders runs against them. He can't beat him. And now, the way he's going right now, the way Trump's going, they're going to have a hard time beating him anyway. He's going to have to really screw some stuff up because right now he is a very solid favorite as the incumbent. First of all, incumbents running on a economy where the unemployment is 3% are going to be hard to beat. That's just a fact. Plus, he's gotten stronger and stronger and stronger the last year. Things have fallen into place for him. So he's going to be very hard to beat no matter who you put up there. But Bernie, for all the magic that he has, and he will have a magical night tonight. He will win in New Hampshire. He has a rabid following, which no one can doubt. Well, Trump filled his building last night to the tune of 11,000. Bernie filled his building to the tune of 7,500 people. And those are legitimate Bernie backers. There's a lot of them. But that's the part of the party that wants to be all the way out there to the left. And you know what? That's fine for the primary. It does not work in a general election. You run to the outsides to win the primaries and win your party. You run to the middle to win the election. That's the way it has to be. Because you have to get crossover votes and independent votes to win the presidency. It has to happen. Whatever you're on, whatever side you're on, you have to do that. So you have to be more of a centrist. And he is as farthest thing from a centrist as we've ever seen. He is by his own description, a socialist Democrat. That is not going to work in this country. It's not going to work. So the question is, when you come out of this, when the smoke clears, it's Bernie against whom? That's what they're looking for. Is it Mayor Pete? Is it Bloomberg? Because everybody thought it would be Biden, but it doesn't look like it is Biden. Now, Biden's going to go to South Carolina and make one last stand. He'll stay in through South Carolina because he thinks that's his firewall and that he can win because he thinks he can still overwhelm the black vote, despite the fact that a poll came out showing black voters in the Democratic primary are now running from him like the house is on fire. because they don't think he can win. Nobody in the Democratic Party now thinks that Biden can win. I'm not even sure Biden thinks he can win. Plus, he's running out of money. You know, people don't realize running a campaign is really expensive. Airtime is expensive, and they even give you a cut rate, and it's still expensive. Two things that you got to fund that they don't basically take charge cards for on. One is the TV time, and the second is jet fuel. Very expensive to fly these planes all over the place. Extremely expensive. So the bottom line is you got to have some cash, and he's running out of cash fast. Because the guys in the middle are saying, wait a second, they're looking to back a live horse. He looks like an old horse that needs to be put out to pasture. So it's going to be Bernie is going to win. Mayor Pete's going to run a good second, but this is where it's going to start to unravel for him, because once you get into states where it looks like the general populace, his popularity is going to wane dramatically. So the question is, where is that second person? Bloomberg may have had the door open for him by Biden. Warren has been taken on air and really is falling apart. And Klobuchar is coming on, but not enough. So it probably right now is Bloomberg with a little Mayor Pete for the next weeks, with Biden trying to hold on for dear life. Now, they'll all stay in the race because that's the way the race is set up now. You're almost pretty much locked with Bernie taking these now. You're pretty much locked that nobody's going to have enough delegates to get to the convention a winner. So you're probably going to have a broken convention, which is what Bloomberg's looking for. Because he thinks with his overwhelming wealth. Now, he just got hit tonight again on a tape of him talking stop and frisk, which is something that he has a big problem with now. He didn't then, he does now, because of the fact, and this is what happens in politics, because he needs the black votes to win the Democratic nomination. He cannot do it without a big representation in the black vote. And the black vote don't like the stop and frisk stuff at all. So that is a big problem. And he's got some other problems with the black community. So he's got to try and patch those up if he's going to try and make a run here. Plus, you know, we haven't even seen him yet. So he's going to have to get out on the debate stage. They're going to start throwing arrows at him. He's not good on his feet. He's a little guy. He sounds whiny. He's a little guy, and he's not a great. He's got no personality. So he's better from a distance where you say, wow, here's a guy who started his own business with no money and now is one of the richest men in the world, which is all true. You know what he did. You know Bloomberg Network. You know Bloomberg and what he did with the financial network and creating what he did on Wall Street. Listen, the guy's a genius. On top of that, he was a very good mayor. You've heard me say that many, many times. I've been around him a bunch of times. He has the personality of wallpaper. He is, I probably was in a room with him 15 times, and each time it was like I met him for the first time. He was never friendly. He was never congenial. He was never outgoing to anybody, not just me, to anybody. It's just not his way. He'll sit there and won't say a word. I was in a charity event with him once where we were in the same room for like a half hour with a couple of people, and everyone was trying to engage him. He wouldn't engage. He just has that. While if Trump was in there, you'd think he was your best friend. And that's, if Clinton was in there, you'd think he was your best friend. He'd be talking Arkansas basketball. He'd be talking this. He'd be talking that. You'd think he was your best friend. If George Bush was in there, you'd think he was your best friend. I've never met Barack Obama, so I can't answer for him. But having met those other guys, you would think they're your best friend. And that's part of the quality that you need to have. He has no likability. Even Trump, with all his craziness, has likability because he's got a personality. Bloomberg has none. And when you see a lot of them, that becomes an issue a little bit. But he has an incredible record to run on. He is a self-made, not like Trump. Trump was given a fortune from his father. This guy was poor. This guy got fired. This guy basically started with nothing and built a legitimate American Just incredible story. I mean, he is one of the American success stories of all time. He's worth $50 billion. He's one of the richest men in the world. He is a legitimate business genius. He ran the city really well. He'd make a great president. I'd be the first to admit that. He would be a really good president. If you wanted to say what guy on quality would be a good president, he would be a legitimately good president. He'd have smart ideas. He would do things in a very rational way. He's a strong leader. He would be very good in that regard. He would serve the country very well as a president. But he's got zero likability, zero personality. But he's making his run here because he hates Trump with a passion, and he has put together, from the people you talk to in politics, will tell you that he has put together one of the strongest political forces that anybody has ever seen. He has this data system. I think they call it Hawkfish. I think that's a code name for it. That is second to none. He has hired people and given them and paid them at a lot of money through the fall. So they're in for the duration. Even if he's not, because what he wants to do, what his promise is if he gets beat or he never gets started here, he will turn this entire force, all the data, all the people, over to whoever gets the nomination for free to try to beat Trump. So somebody's going to either he's going to win or somebody's going to inherit this, where he's basically saying, I will bankroll your candidacy to beat Trump. I will give you the money you need. I will give you the data you need. So he basically is saying, I am in. He has made this quote a couple times. He has said, I am in. Either I'm in, or if I'm not on the ballot, I'm still in to beat Trump. So he is going to make it harder for Trump because he is going to back whoever, ever the candidate is. But I don't know that he would have a lot of faith in, the businessman he is, and understanding American business and American politics. I don't know that he can get behind Bernie, because anyone who believes in free enterprise, remember, Bernie rails about billionaires all the time. Who's more of a billionaire than Bloomberg? And all Bernie rails about is how the 1% is ruining America. He's at the top of the 1%. He's on the first page. So I don't know if there's any middle ground there for those two. I want to watch a couple of things tonight. I want to see if Bernie gets the turnout. The turnout is huge. He's been telling people that he can get young people to vote for him. We'll see. He needs turnout. He didn't get turnout in Iowa. Number two, how weird is this? In the past, it's always been that the young people jump on the young candidate. Here they're jumping on the old candidate, not the young candidate. They're not on Mayor Pete, who's young. They're on Bernie, who's old. Why? Because Bernie's basically giving them free health care, free college, no student loans. That's why they're on board. They say Klobuchar has picked it up since the debate the other night, where she did well. And there's something likable about that woman. But I just don't think she's strong enough nationally. Let's see if she really dents it tonight. If she does and she comes in third, she's got a little something going for her. But she's got to finish third tonight. And let's see how Warren's dead. She won't admit it yet, but she's dead. And she took her run. And when she took her run, she went after the Wall Street. She went after the billionaires, and she crashed and burned. She's been out-Bernied by Bernie. And so she's gone. The question is how long she wants to hang around. She's not in it or out of it. She might finish fourth tonight. She probably will. She probably won't finish fifth. The question is, how far does Biden fall? Biden leaving town is unbelievable. He actually left town, which created a bigger headline than anything else. If he had stayed in town, it wouldn't have created as much of a sorry look as him leaving town. But he figured, you know what? I'm not going to hang around here. This is going to be that bad. That's how the wheels have come off to that extent. And he's going to make his stand. in South Carolina. He's going to stay in through there on name value alone and make his stand where he has to win South Carolina. If he doesn't win South Carolina, it's over. Do I think he can do it? I don't. I think it's over. I think he's. I don't think his heart's in it either. I can't believe he'd be this bad on his own. So I got to believe that he's just given up. He doesn't want to admit it. He's kind of been pushed into this, and he doesn't want to admit it. So that leaves somebody against Bernie for the nomination. Mayor Pete wants it to be him, or it's going to be Bloomberg. It's going to be one of the two. And I think it's going to be Bloomberg. I had thought it would be Biden, but there's nothing there. So that's where we are as we hit New Hampshire this evening. Trump is a stronger candidate now than he was when they ran against him last time. They have to realize that because he now has the entire Republican Party at his beck and call. They are behind him. They weren't behind him last time. They're behind him 100% now. So he's going to be a strong candidate, going to run stronger than he did last time. And you could tell by last night where they had people waiting out 24 hours in the rain just to get a seat to see him. He was that popular up there. So, this comes down to 6 or 7 states. What you do in those states, the other states, you can lock them up right now. You can say which ones are for Republican, which ones are for Democrats, and then just go from there. And then you got like 7 states where it's going to make all the difference. And there's a very good chance he could lose the popular vote again because of California and win the election. Means nothing, but it could happen again very easily. The question is, who's the candidate? Because I cannot believe somebody's going to play the role Bernie plays and actually win the general election. I don't think it's possible. So that's where we are tonight as we have the primary. And really, this is really the start tonight because of all the disaster with the whole caucus situation in Iowa. We'll take a quick break, get off politics, and come back and do sports. We turn our attention first as camps open up everywhere, and baseball tries to get behind this scandal. And listen, as each player has something to say about it, as players come forward with indignation, as players who were on the team and now on other teams have to apologize and discuss their roles, okay, this thing will have a huge life. And baseball can't do anything about that. But baseball, which is in some trouble right now, okay? Now, it's not like they aren't making a lot of money. They are. But they don't like the way their game is trending. They don't like the way it's trending at the gate. They don't like the way it's trending in TV. They all have a little bit of envy when it comes to the National Football League, but we know that. But I do not, under any circumstances, like the premise of the expanded baseball playoffs. And I understand when Manfred put it out, he knew he had enough people who I'm sure he had run this past, who were, guys who were prominent baseball writers across the country who he knew he had some support in certain areas, and they've come out, a lot of them have come out for it. Hey, here's the problem. Baseball's got to be different. If you are going to play on a daily basis over 6 months and 162 games, you cannot devalue your regular season by letting everybody and letting bad teams into the playoffs. It has to have a quality to it. Otherwise, how do you sell the regular season? The NBA doesn't try to sell its regular season. It admits its regular season is flawed. They'd be the first to admit it. The NFL doesn't have to worry about that because their regular season comes and goes so quickly, and every game is special. That's what's unique in the NFL. We understand that hockey and basketball have become playoff sports, but they have 2 solid months of playoff action, and the action can be extremely dramatic, and it works for them. Has it hurt their regular season? Yes. Does the NBA's regular season get hurt? It gets hurt dramatically. It's having a terrible year this year in terms of ratings and everything else. But baseball, if you're going to play 162 times, it's enough now where you try to digest the Yankees and the Orioles, okay? The inequality on the field and the idea that these games matter. You know the Yankees are going to the playoffs. You know the Orioles are going nowhere. How do those games matter? How are they anything more than exhibition games? And when they're played early in the season, come on. And you say, well, I still need people to go to the games. Hey, it's not just the ticket price. It's $40 to park the car. It's the investment of a whole night. It's buying the kids, what they need to have at the game that night. And part of the law is being there is buying your kids whatever you need there. So, and say you're not going to pack a lunch or whatever, you know what I'm talking about here. So it's an expensive evening for the guy on a budget. And why bother? You can stay home and watch it on television, and the game has so little meaning anyway. And yes, the game is losing. It's losing the young viewer and the young participant. Why? Because it is a slow game by nature. If you go to high school and you are a good athlete, you have to really love baseball. Just look at it if you're in the Northeast here. And let's say you can play all four sports. You can play baseball, you can play basketball, you can play football, you can play lacrosse. Lacrosse has become really big up here, and the fans flock to the lacrosse games. You can't get a person to go to the baseball games. I know when I played them. Here's where baseball is up here. You play it in April. It's freezing and windy. It's a barren field. You're in a coat on the dugout when you're not on the field. There's not one person in the stands, and it's two teams playing. While if you are a good athlete, your stadium's full for football. You can't get a seat for the basketball games. People flock to the lacrosse games. What are you going to play? The cheerleaders can't wait to get to the other sports. In high school, hey, the girls are a big issue. You know that. Baseball, nobody cares. You can't even get your mother to go to the games. They're played somewhere where it's freezing cold. Nobody cares. There's not a person there. And that's the scene, and it's slow moving. The other sports, you're playing both ways, or you're playing offense, playing defense. The game's fast, the whole thing. So, and on top of that, you have watched as in this country, the African-American athlete has said, hey, I start playing basketball at 12. They give me sneakers. They give me warm-ups. I play in front of a full gym. I'm a hero on my street. If I play baseball, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And then the avenue to being pro players, that's why you have so few African-American players because of the fact that they've gone to other sports. The guys who played baseball, generations ago are now football players and basketball players. They're going to choose those sports over baseball, almost always. And that's a real problem for baseball, but that is, in essence, a problem of it. You cannot, and I'll tell you right now, I'll give you an example, and this is all back to the same system. You see, what I'm talking about now and how the impact is on the younger people who are used to things being far quicker and far faster than we were. The other sports have grown in terms of circulation. And I understand now fewer people are playing baseball. Okay, but those people, playing football. A lot of parents won't let their kids play football. We let our son play football. He played running back this year. Okay, we let him play. A lot of people won't. So he can play basketball if he's good enough. He can play soccer. He can play lacrosse. The bottom line is this all plays into the popularity of baseball. Baseball is worried about the speed of its game, trying to speed it up. Look at the rules this year. Change the rules. Change the rules out of the bullpen. The three batter rule, the whole thing, which I detest. Don't take the strategy out of the sport. Just to quicken the game up. See, you got to honor your game and understand what it is. If you try to change it too much, you're not honoring the game. The game will have its fans. When I go to a baseball game, I don't sit there and say, boy, if it's a good game, I don't sit there and say, what a tedious night. I say I can't stand the noise in between innings. But I don't say what a tedious game this is. The game's interesting. You play it in your head, you play it out in your head. And when it's at its best, that drama is heightened. That pace that you play it at, the bat unfolding, it's almost like suspended. The drama is almost suspended. It is in slow motion. It is that intense. There's something special about it. But the rest of the year, it gets hurt. In April, it's tedious. In October, it's dramatic. So that's why baseball is saying, see, we're trying to give you more of the dramatic. Yeah, but you cannot cheapen your sport to where there's no value in the regular season, because if you do, how do you sell 162 games? Yes, we live in a postseason world now. And that's what baseball is saying to you here. We live in a postseason world. We need more of it. We need more layers of it like the other sports. But the other sports aren't trying to sell you 162 games that start before even spring hits a lot of American cities. Baseball started. It's going to go through the entire spring, the start of summer, the searing heat of summer, and into the cool nights of fall, and almost into winter temperatures before they crown a champion. Think about that. Think about how long that is. And you're going to cheapen that by making it now where you're going to just basically put everybody in the playoffs. 14 teams, from 10 to 14 teams, and then create some kind of circus reality show where you're going to tell teams now they can pick their own opponents. I mean, come on now. Talk about selling out. You can tell me that you aren't cheapening the sport and devaluing the regular season, but all you're doing, if you're telling me that, is being an apologist, because there is a price you pay for heightening the postseason. Look at college basketball. College basketball has created an incredible vehicle that captures the imagination of America for 17 days called the NCAA tournament. And it does that. On campuses across America, everywhere, pools, this, that, the whole thing. Does anybody care about a regular season college game now because of that? No. Did the tournament become so exciting and so big that it devoured the regular season? Absolutely. I had that conversation with Dave Gavitt, who was one of the real thinkers in college basketball and one of the guys who really modernized the sport. And I said, Dave, this tournament's going to devour the regular season. And he said, I don't know how we can stop it. And that was in the 80s. And it has. It's completely devoured. The regular season has no meaning. I can tell you right now what teams are making the NCAA tournament. And so what if they get there as a 4 seed or a 5 seed, or get there as a 2 seed or a 3 seed? It makes no difference. So has the regular season been cheapened? Yes. Can you still get people to go to the games? Sure. There's people that will go to the games, just like there's people who go to baseball games. But are you going to have drama and excitement and enhanced ratings? No, you're not. And baseball's going to go the same way. If you are going to take this and add layers of playoffs, you are going to devalue the regular season. Pennant drives as you know them are going to cease to exist. Because if you think, oh, I added the second wild card and it worked. Yes, it did. Because what you had done is you had turned September over to the NFL, and now you've taken it back by allowing some teams that have a reason to fight, where maybe they were locked out by a great team. So the Yankees are winning 110 games, but somebody else is playing. Tampa's got 94 and is pushing for a wild card. That team deserves to go to the postseason. But you don't need 7 teams in each league. And now a team getting off, that team doesn't want off in baseball. If that team was good enough and had a great regular season, it has its pitching set up right to go when the postseason starts. It doesn't want to be off for 5 more days. That's not a positive. That's a negative. And when you start getting teams that are less than 500 after you've played 162 games, then what are you selling? Why, you don't like that these teams are tanking and you have so many teams losing 100 games? Well, you know what? You've created a sport where these teams have decided I'm not gonna be mediocre for a couple of years. I'm gonna be real bad and I'm gonna rebuild that way. And then I'll get back to being really good again. Houston did it. Atlanta did it. Other teams will do it. But to say you will not devalue your regular season is nonsense. This will kill the regular season. Increasing the number of teams from 10 to 14, adding a reality TV type format to determine which teams play each other. 3 division winners, 4 wildcard teams making the postseason starting in 2022. Best team in the league would receive a bye into the division series. The 2 remaining division winners and the wildcard teams with the best record of the 4 would each host all games. Best of 3 opening round. Too many teams. You can't play 162 games to just eliminate half the sport. Not 162 games. You want to take the season down? But you can't do that. Make the season a month shorter, play fewer regular season games. Owners will never agree to that. They won't even play single eliminate. They won't even play single admission double headers, which is something everybody in baseball should do every week. You want to put something back into the game for the family? Here's what you do. You give everybody in major leagues Monday off and play double headers on Sunday, where people get a bang for their buck and get 2 games for 1 price. And people will flock to those double headers on Sunday. And baseball is shut down on Monday. Like the old days. But they'll never do that. They want single elimination. That's where the day-night doubleheader came from, because of the fact that you say, I need both attendance figures. And when you're paying players $350 million, you need that. So they're trying to brand their sport. They're trying to create postseason awareness. They're trying to create a vehicle where there's more money to be paid out. And in this age of streaming and gambling, create more postseason intensity. All true. But you cannot do it without devaluing a regular season that is played out over 6 months and 162 games. Baseball is played every day. It needs the regular season to have meaning for it to have any intensity in the regular season. What you will do is completely kill the intensity of the regular season. You'll go in knowing the Yankees are in the playoffs. Under this format, is there any way the Yankees would not, if they had a terrible season, they would still make the playoffs easy? So you say, well, yeah, well, you went into the season this year, you knew the Milwaukee Bucks were making the playoffs, you knew the LA Lakers were making the playoffs. Fine, but that's the NBA. They play 2 months of playoffs. We know the regular season has no meaning now. That's not the model you're trying to create. Baseball is different. Baseball's regular season has always had meaning. Pennant races have always had meaning. I was a big proponent of the second wild card because it served a need. This now will destroy the regular season. And you cannot sit there and tell me that letting that many teams into the postseason does not devalue a 162-game regular season. That is utter nonsense. Especially when you play good teams play bad teams 19 times. Baseball is running scared right now. It thinks it has to speed up its game. It thinks it has to modernize and stay with the times. It doesn't understand how to attract the young viewer. And you know what? It can't sell its soul to do that. It has to believe that the game itself has enough value that people appreciate it. If you can't believe that about your sport, you're doomed anyway. If you feel you have to completely change your sport to survive, you're already dead. Baseball doesn't have to do that. Depends what they're trying to compete with. It depends, because remember, always remember, never, ever for a second forget what the job of the commissioner is. To grow revenue. That's it. The rest is conversation and window dressing. It's to grow revenue. That's it. That's what he's there for. When the Players Association got strong, that became his job. And to keep the Players Association under his thumb as much as humanly possible. But the courts have made sure that that doesn't happen. The biggest equalizer in sports from the Players Association's standpoint has always been the courts. But baseball, yes. Does it have some issues to deal with? It does. It's facing some issues. The NBA is facing some issues. They do a much better job of branding their players. They do a much better job of marketing their players. Their stars are more marketable anyway for a lot of reasons, including their connection to sneakers and to social media. That's the two biggest things that the NBA players have going for them are sneakers and social media. They're very big on both. And the kids, they love the sneakers, and they connect to it. And they connect to the social media. They know every one of the players by first name. They know everything about them. It's unbelievable. My boys, they like every sport. They'll go to any game in any sport. Just took them to the Super Bowl. Okay? They love the NBA. They really like baseball. They've grown up on baseball. They both play baseball. But they know so much more about the NBA players than they do about the Major League Baseball players. It's unbelievable. Now, everybody knows Tom Brady, and everyone wants to know where he's going. Okay? Well, he's Tom Brady. But in the NBA, they know everything about every one of these guys. They do a very good job of that. They have promoted this. That started with Larry and Magic and Michael and David Stern, and it has kept on with Adam, and they have promoted their stars very well. Now, you could call Trout a reluctant hero. He's on the West Coast. He doesn't make the postseason. There's a lot of reasons why. He also isn't cut out for that leading man role. I understand all that. But baseball still does a horrific job of selling its stars. Why? One of the biggest reasons has always been that the players' union was always so strong that it bothered the owners. They didn't feel that was their job. There was that adversarial relationship there, and there still always is. I mean, there's always that, always lurking. They're always yelling collusion. How do you yell collusion when when players are getting paid $350 million? When you see what Betts gets and what and obviously what you've seen guys get this offseason, how do you yell collusion? Come on. But there's a little bit of anything but a feeling of cooperation there. That level of cooperation has been there with the NBA and their players. It has not been there. It has not been there with the Major League Baseball Players Association. It hasn't been there in the NFL, but the NFL owners have been very strong, and the league has been very strong at keeping the players really under their thumb. Let's see if they continue that, because the players right now have a chance to really do well in the NFL, because the league needs them now. Ownership needs them right now. To get what they want, they need them. So it's a big time for the NFLPA. Let's see how they do. Back after this. What a remarkable job by the Bucks. I mean, 46-7. 46-7 is impressive. Won last night against the Kings without the Freak. He was out because his girlfriend was giving birth. I don't know if he's playing this evening or not. I would think he probably isn't. But the point is, they continue to win. They've been great on the road. They've been great at home. He has been incredibly consistent. And it's funny, I made the point that I've been trying to find somebody to beat them for the postseason, thinking about whether or not the Sixers could get anything together, thinking about whether or not the Celtics could rise to that level if they got everybody healthy, wondering about what the Heat could do once they got another piece together, with Iguodala. Um, this team has been that strong. It really has. I mean, it's done really a sensational job, and it's been wrong not to give them the credit they deserve because they really do deserve that kind of credit. They really, in this age where we overhype everything. I mean, just look at the amount of hype Zion's gotten. You look at that team, and nobody talks much about it. And 46-7 is an incredible record. And the Freak has had just an incredibly good season. You know what kind of athlete he is. You know how good an all-around game he has. You just look at the game he played when he played against Zion. He shut him down completely. He basically scores between 28 and 34 points every game. Throwing 13, 14, rebounds, throwing 5, 6 assists, a couple blocks, this and that, Bledsoe, Middleton, Lopez, Matthews. DiVincenzo, who I love, coming off the bench. That is a very, very good team. And a team that really has just night after night been able to come up with a big effort and play hard, and talk about it means something to them. You can tell. And they deserve what they get. And, you got what Toronto's done recently. And you look at everything else, but we all, and I admit I have too, just not giving this team the due it deserves, not giving the Freak the due he deserves for the performance what he's done. And we're talking about every single night, and also what this team has done every single night. Very, very, very impressive. Really has been. Ultra impressive. I mentioned the quarterback situation. Rivers and where he's going, and I think he'll find a team somewhere. I don't think there's going to be I don't think there's going to be a big market for him. I think there'll be something. There'll be a team that he latches onto, but I don't think there'll be a big market. We're still waiting to find out if Breeze is going to leave. Now, Breeze will either go home or come back for another year. It's almost like he's worried that Sean may decide that he's got to fight for his job, and he doesn't really want to do that. Because, Sean is very much taken with Hill's performance, and he thinks he can be a special player, and, you almost think that he wants to get on with it. See, these guys now, the one thing that has really changed is the way the game is played now, the way that they ask offensive linemen to play now, the way defensive players on the line play now. Your quarterback has to have mobility. It's become an absolute requirement. He's got to be able to do. He does not have to be a guy who's going to run for a lot of positive yardage, but it is now completely essential that he be able to get away from the initial thrust of the pass rush and at least be able to move and reestablish his throwing ability in another spot. How many times did you see either Mahomes either run and just get away, just get outside the pass rush, the pocket collapse, he gets outside the pass rush, either wait for the receiver to clear and then stop and plant and throw, or run for positive yardage. And his ability to do that was the difference in that game. More than anything else that happened in that game, it was that. Because I'm telling you, if you had an immobile quarterback in that game, he would have been sacked double digits. They came so close to, and you could tell it so much at the game. they came so close to getting him on so many occasions that I can understand why the idea of the old pocket quarterback who, might be able to move a little bit around the pocket, has always been tough enough to stand in there and throw with guys draped on him like a Roethlisberger. Okay? Be able to slide a little bit like Brady does. But now you want him to have that ability, those fast feet, the way Mahomes does, the way Russell Wilson does. You don't have to be the flat runner. You don't have to be you don't have to be Michael Vick or Jackson. That's not what I'm talking about. But you have to have now an escapability and a maneuverability that is part and parcel of your game. And I would now put that on a level with accuracy and toughness as a requirement at the position. Because they now they cave the pocket so quickly now. And a lot of times these guys, these pass rushers know that they have to get that initial thrust and then have almost a secondary movement before they sack the quarterback. But if it's an old-time quarterback who's in that pocket, he's there, you know where he is, you crush the pocket, you crush the quarterback. That is not the case now with these modern quarterbacks. And that's where that has become an essential part, which is why you have some of these guys moving away from Eli and Rivers and even Breeze for the more mobile guy who gives you so many different variations of the same theme. But more than anything else, he gives you an escapability. He gives you a chance when your pocket breaks down to still make the play. And if I could chart in that game how many times he either just got away and either ran for positive yardage or made a throw, it had to be 6 or 7 times, including the 3rd and 15 to Hill where he was almost down and got away. I mean, he was almost, I know some people thought that Bosa was held on that play. He was almost down. He had to pull away. Almost was down. And there was like 2 or 3 times where I know that when the Niners went and watched the film, which they all did as a team after the game, they talked about how many times they thought they had him and he got away. And that turned out to be and that's what I thought watching it in the stands. I said, his mobility is saving this game. And he hadn't done a lot yet, but then all of a sudden we know what happened once they hit the 3rd and 15 and how the game changed. But that has become an essence, which is why you see some of these older quarterbacks now maybe being pushed out of jobs because they want that more mobile version with the next guy. When we come back, we'll be joined by the WFAN.
Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM WFAN.
All right, we welcome in the Fan on a Tuesday evening. The program brought to you, as always, by the good folks at Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila brought to you by those who drink it, and they bring you the program each and every night. And let me remind you that tonight at 7, after we've finished, and then Steve's on at 6:30, John and Susan and Joe Castiglione have a special show from the River Spring Health in Riverdale, in the Bronx. A Yankees Red Sox hot stove show coming up. It's on the Fan tonight at 7:00. So you get to hear Susan and John and Joe do the show 7:00 this evening. They wanted me to remind you guys of that. So that comes your way tonight. So on this February evening, as spring training gets underway, you can think a little baseball, and it'll, warm your heart to hear some baseball this evening as the Yankees and the Red Sox and all their fans get together and chat about things this evening. Now, the Mets open today, and again, I can't wait to see how they spend $57 million on that place, which they did. So I got to get over there and look at that. which I will, but see exactly what they put together for 57. It just sounds like a lot of money for that place. It just does. But hey, whatever. Their manager, who I thought was kind of reticent when I heard him at the press conference. Now, he spoke today. Let's listen. First about Cespedes.
The performance staff is working on his progression, and we're going from there.
So opening day hasn't been ruled out yet.
We don't know. I mean, there's no timeline yet. Once I get it, I will happy share it with you guys. We don't have a timeline. So says he's running, he's hitting.
5.
I've had conversations with him. But we don't have the timeline yet.
It's good. And of course, Luis Rojas, the new Met manager, he's known to be a guy who can handle players. He's from a baseball family, as you know. He's the son of Felipe Alou, who was a classy baseball man as a player and a manager. So he comes from a good baseball family. They say he handles people well, players well. He's got a tricky thing there, though. Cespedes is the kind of guy who has an impact on a team. Now, the leader of that team is clearly Cano. That's his role. That's kind of, he morphed into that. And Alonso, yes, too, as a young guy, a young star, but it's really Cano and DeGrom, obviously, from the pitching standpoint. But Cespedes is the kind of guy who has an impact if he's there. And if he's happy, it's one team, and if he's not happy, it's another team, and that's kind of tricky for a first-year manager to handle all that and handle playing time and ups and downs and when those guys are healthy and not healthy and how he handles. And I don't think Cano will be an issue. I think Robbie will be a positive, not a negative. I think Cespedes could be a positive or a negative. But how he handles these guys in terms of their moods and in terms of their playing time is going to be very interesting because it will impact this team, as obviously will the bullpen, we know. But here it is on what kind of team he thinks he has.
We feel that we're built to win. I mean, we have a great roster. We have great position players with versatility. We have a great starting rotation or pitchers that, that have the starting history, Cy Youngs, World Series winners, and a bullpen with a lot of guys that have, history of saving games.
Might be overdoing it a bit. Now, he didn't go the Brody way and guarantee anything. They have a good roster. They have a good lineup. They don't have a great lineup. The Yankees have a great team. These guys have a good team. It could be a very good team. They have starting pitching, no question. They have decorated players. You have a first baseman who just comes off an incredible season. You have DeGrom, who has been the dominant pitcher in the sport the last 2 years. You obviously have talent in the rotation. You have some versatility in the lineup. It's a tricky lineup, though. What's Cespedes' role? What's Cano's role? What's Davis's role? Does McNeil have one position? Does he have more than one position? All this is going to be a little tricky. And then, of course, you come to the most important part, is they're going to have to lead a lot of nights after 7 innings. And their starter's going to leave the game. And what happens from there is going to decide their season, as it always will. They're going to lead. They're going to have a lot of games where they're going to have a lead, or they're going to be tied in the 6th and 7th inning of the game, and they're going to go to the bullpen. And they have a incredibly talented player in Betances. They have a guy who was sensational until he got here last year and he blew up, Diaz, and then you have the slim down Familia and a couple other pieces in the pen, and you have Lugo too, who I like. So there's the makings of a good pen there. But there's a lot of pieces that are going to be very interesting to see how they fit with this team. Let me skip to the Giants, who really got good news today. I don't know how much the talk there's been of that. I didn't hear anything, I didn't hear the station at all today. But they got good news today. And the good news was that Tua has been cleared, that he has healed. So from what we can tell, everything we just heard, that you heard, I'm sure you saw those reports this morning, everything that we heard about Tua places him now back at the top of the draft, where he is worthy of being selected. Now, that means you know who's going off the board 1. You know who's going off the board 2. Those next picks become very valuable because there are going to be people looking to trade right in after 2 for Tua. There are going to be teams looking to get in there and get this player. So how that unfolds, the Giants don't need a quarterback, but they can be in the market of maybe being able to make a trade and pick up some valuable slots and some players and some picks in that they can help facilitate something. They're right there. They're right in the middle of the action. And the action can happen right there. And now he's to the point where if he, with the report they gave today, which was very positive about how he's healed, I think moves him back into this. Like, I always thought he was going to go at 5 anyway. I thought somebody would take him. I thought either the Dolphins would move on him at 5 or somebody would move in and move on him right around there. I think it can happen even earlier than that now because he's that good. If he's healthy, he has a chance to be a great quarterback. It's one of the most accurate college passes I've ever seen. Is he injury prone? Incredibly injury prone. Would you be worried about that? You'd have to be nuts not to be worried about it. He's had major injuries. The guy hasn't even played a full season without being hurt. He's been hurt. This is a guy who, his first play was to come in at halftime of a national championship game with his team down and lead them to victory. That was his first game. Now, no one's ever going to have a better first game. I mean, here's a guy who didn't play all year and then comes off the bench and wins the national championship for his team from behind with an incredible second half, which obviously made him a star. And then he went on and put forth an incredible season until he got hurt late in the season. And then another incredible season where he got hurt late in the season and then had another injury on top of that. So he's had 4 injuries: knee, ankle, hip in 2 seasons. But he has an incredible amount of ability. It's an interesting dilemma. I think there is now 3 teams that Tom Brady is not rumored to be going to. So I think it's gotten a little silly. Tom Brady to the Raiders. Oh, really? Tom Brady to the Cowboys. Got it. Okay. To the Cowboys now. There are a few teams that make some sense. I think Tom Brady still to the Patriots is the most logical. I think it will be hard for the Pats to part with him. I understand he wants to get paid. I think there is a chance that they will part with him. But I think the teams that he would go to, if you understand Brady and his comfort level on things, I do not think he would go into the unknown. I think he would only go into a scenario where he feels very comfortable. That will, in my mind, give Vrabel a very, very big leg up because he understands Vrabel's one of his best friends. That running back takes all the pressure off him from a standpoint that he knows he's not going to get hit a lot running that offense. He could handle that and run that very, very efficiently and not take a beating, which is something he does not want to do. He does not want to go somewhere and take a beating. So I understand the glamour idea of it. Tom goes to the Chargers to sell tickets, goes home to sell tickets. I understand it. I don't think the team's good enough. Goes to Vegas to sell tickets. Don't see it. Goes to the Cowboys to unite under McCarthy because of what's going on with Dak. Much more logical that they threaten to franchise Dak, which brings him to the table, which gets the deal done, which is what I and Jerry usually gets the deals with his player that he wants. So I still think that's illogical. I think the most logical are twofold. One is Tennessee. The other is the Chargers, and that is more about, I think, future than it is about present. Because I think that would mean that he will have some kind of stake in that team going forward. Some kind of role, some kind of stake, something to do with the overall, if not running, the overall ownership of that franchise going forward. So I would think that would lead him. That would be the reason he would go to the Chargers, as he would be invaluable to them in terms of giving them some credibility as a second tenant in a city where they don't have any standing. Selling tickets in a city where it's tough to sell tickets for football to begin with, and now you're doing it as a second-class citizen. He elevates all of that and makes it so much better for them on so many levels. So his value there is incredible, as far as presence off the field is incredible there, and otherwise, I think the other part is the comfort level he would clearly have with Vrabel, who's one of his best friends, and the idea that he would be in an offense where he could react and play action off a running game that would really keep him from getting hit at all. He would love throwing into that. That offense with him running it would be very efficient. And they have a good team. And Vrabel's a good coach, and Vrabel and he are very close. And if it's about any let's show Bill Belichick stuff, well, they could team up and do it together. So I mean, I think it's still 1 New England, 2 Tennessee, 3 Chargers. The way I would see it. I don't buy into the Cowboy stuff at all. I understand you're going to give me a reason. You're going to give me the Dak is push the Cowboys to the limit. He could miss the whole offseason, blah, blah, blah. You know, Jerry wants to win one more. I understand all the premises of it. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I think Tom likes structure. I don't think Tom likes circus. Cowboys are circus. I don't think Tom likes circus. I think he likes structure. That's why I think he liked Tennessee, because of structure. I think Tom knows structure. Tom appreciates structure. Tom wants players around him who listen. He wants players around him that get it. He wants a culture around him that he's used to. That's what he would get with Vrabel. But I still think it's more New England than anything else. This baseball thing that you've probably spent a lot of time on today, I don't like I was very pro the second wild card. Extremely so. They needed to be able to keep those cities involved and not turn everything back after Labor Day with a runaway winner, turn all those cities back into NFL cities for a month, where the NFL just took over. So I like the idea of the wild card the way it's set up now. I think baseball's format right now works well. I think it's positive. I think it has worked well. I think it's been very successful. It has been. The playoff games have been dramatic. I think that has worked well. I think they are panicking, and I think their expansion idea will be crippling to their regular season. Absolutely crippling. I don't like it. The reality show is cheap, and it's not how you treat your regular season. To add the idea of, hey, let's go pick who we're going to play against. I mean, that's not the idea of sports. That's not what sports. That's not how it's set up. That's almost game showish. That cheapens the sport. And I'm telling you, you cannot have 162 games and not devalue the regular season by adding that many postseason teams to the mix. You're going to have bad teams involved. You're going to have mediocre teams involved, and that's not the premise. The idea in baseball is to separate teams with the regular season. It's to separate teams Okay, so from that standpoint, that is the idea. If you don't do it that way, it's not going to work. I think that to add as many teams as they're talking about would so cheapen the regular season, and there's no way around it. I mean, listen, we live in a postseason world now. That's the world we live in. That's the world that has been created in modern times. Postseason is everything. Regular season is nothing. We only consider people winners off what they do in the postseason. If you don't live in the postseason, then you don't exist. Which is, as an example, is part of Trout's problem. You know, Jeter's legacy has been enhanced by the fact that he lived in the postseason. So his whole career was theatrical. And there was meaning to it. There was a payoff every year. That has happened. And the other sports, obviously, they worry about devaluing their regular season. They try to put some meaning in their regular season, especially in the NBA where it's a big problem, and especially since players now treat the regular season as nothing more than a way station. With the amount of rest that has been incorporated in because of the way analytics looks at rest. You know, analytical studies are very, very pro-rest, as you've probably figured out by now. So the idea of that has lent itself to even devaluing the regular season even more. You've seen it where in the NCAA tournament, I mean, think about it. College is starting in November. The NCAA tournament is 3 weeks in March. You can erase. You could go 30-1. You could be San Diego State this year. You could be Dayton this year. You could be Baylor this year and have an insane regular season and then lose to an 8-9 team on the first weekend, and you will be ridiculed across the country. Your regular season will be looked at as nothing but a farce. You will be completely ridiculed because you did not do what you were supposed to do, which was stand up as a 1 seed and win the amount of games that's requisite with being a 1 seed. Because what you would do in the regular season, despite the fact you went undefeated, let's say, as San Diego State is right now, we'll see if they make it to the finish line undefeated in the regular season. They are undefeated right now. But the point is that there's nothing that will be considered of value from that regular season. Okay, the perfect example of that is Villanova and Jay Wright. I mean, I sat here for years, and fans were calling up asking that he should be fired because they weren't getting out of the second round in the NCAA tournament, despite the fact they were winning 30 games at a school where if he left, they'd be lucky to win 15 or 16. Nobody gave that any thought. Nobody gave the regular season any thought. Nobody gave the Big East tournament any thought. They do. He does. The team does. But nobody does because they look at it now as being an all-or-nothing sport where it's about what you do in the postseason. It's about what you do in March. That is where you either win or lose. And the same is true in the NBA, and the same is true now everywhere. I mean, if you go and lose the Super Bowl, that's it. Doesn't matter what you did in the regular season. Is anybody going to remember what Baltimore did in the regular season this year? Is anyone going to say, boy, Baltimore really had a wonderful season? No, no one cares. What they care about is the fact that they got beat by Tennessee in the postseason. That's what they care about. That's all they remember now. They don't care about anything else. And that's how this has been done. That's why rings and championships and postseason play and performances in those games is what decides fates and decides legacies and everything else. And that's the world we live in. And baseball is going to enter that quickly. But when you play 162 games and you've always put such a premium on your regular season, to do this is very dangerous in baseball because you will completely devalue your regular season. And baseball doesn't want to do that. They want to have their cake and eat it too. It's very difficult to do. The program, once again, brought to you by the good folks at Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos brought to you by those who drink it. Remember, coming up at 7 after Steve at 6:30 is John Susan and Joe Castiglione with their hot stove baseball tonight. Their Yankee Red Sox special. So check that out tonight on the Fan at 7 o'clock. We'll see you tomorrow.